Hi everyone, welcome to Matthew's Movie Mentions. We are now up to week 31, so we're into August. This is films up to the week ending Monday, 6th of August. Doing pretty well so far. What are we discussing this week? The Hitman's Bodyguard, DC Superhero Girls Superhero High, Only Lovers Left Alive, The Killing, The Player, Call Me By Your Name, Justice League, Brigsby Bear, Sicario. So, The Hitman's Bodyguard, we're kicking off with a Ryan Reynolds, Samuel L. Jackson buddy comedy action thing, very adult. I finally caved into watching this. It was a family recommendation. My dad and my sister both said I would enjoy it. I was disappointed. I'm not entirely sure disappointed is actually the word. There are some interesting ideas in it. There's a distinction between Ryan Reynolds' bodyguard who protects people and keeps them alive and Samuel L. Jackson's assassin who kills people. But because it's all centered around keeping bad guys alive or killing bad guys, there's an interesting discussion there. But outside of that, it was a pretty ordinary action thing. The two main actors got to deliver the same things they deliver all the time, which is fine because they're quite funny and quite good to watch doing it. But it didn't do anything particularly surprising throughout. It was good sort of weekend morning fodder. DC Superhero Girls Superhero High, which is actually the movie that kicks off the series. This is the third one I've watched, but I should have watched it first, clearly. It's a shame I watched it last because this is an extraordinary introduction. It's really good. I cannot overstate how much I enjoyed this film. It sets up the rest of the stories from the series really well. It introduces the characters really nicely. It does some interesting stuff with the dynamics that I've not seen before. Yeah, this is fully worth checking out. This was really, really good. Only Lovers Left Alive. I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy the film, but I think that's based entirely on the aesthetic of it and the performances of Tilda Swinton and Tom Hiddleston. There's not much plot, if any. So the film is all about the visual style, the characters of the vampires, and they do carry it pretty well, to be fair. Just there's not much more than watching it and going, oh, it's pretty, oh, it's interesting, oh, Tilda Swinton's amazing every time she's on screen. The Killing is one of the last Kubrick films for me to watch, and I cannot believe I've never watched this before. It is everything I want from a noir story. There are bad people doing bad things, they end up getting their comeuppance, and the ending is just immaculately delivered. There's such a setup of all these different characters and situations that you then cap it off with a couple of moments at the end. You go, oh, this has come together really nicely. This is really good. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed that. The Player is another film that I can't believe I've not seen before. It's got such cynicism about the movie industry, but at the same time, it also feels like it's actually being pretty fair and on point with some of that cynical nature. The style is incredibly good. There's this slightly sort of dreamlike quality at times, so you're never entirely sure what's real and what's not. And and that aspect of the film is what it's calling on of whether you're watching a film, whether you're watching reality, whether you're watching a film inside a film. Like The Killing before it, the ending of this film helps elevate it. So rather than being a letdown or just an ordinary denouement, it adds just an interesting layer of ambiguity that I really enjoy. And you can hear that I'm trying not to give anything away, but it's well worth it. I'm really pleased that I finally watched this. Call Me By Your Name. I was expecting to have aspects like a sort of Lolita story that made it feel a bit sordid, but actually ends up as a fairly lovely, I'm not sure lovely is the right word, but romantic story. It is heartbreaking in its final moments, but it still manages to carry some pride and some hope at the journey itself. I could have lived without some of this. The peach scene is absolutely unnecessary. But other than that, it was really well told. There's some lovely quiet movements through this that just show a couple coming together and sort of courting each other. And it's really nicely done without being the sort of heavy rom-com meet cute stuff. Justice League, I know I am in the minority, but I do really enjoy Justice League. The darkness of other DC films is gone, and in its place we get these character moments, the characters that I love, so the moments between them are just great. Victor, Cyborg, is really good here. He's probably better than I've seen him anywhere else, and I like the friend-mentor relationship that builds with Wonder Woman. I'm not sure I've seen that elsewhere, so that's really good. Ezra Miller is probably the best thing. He is just great. He does stuff with the Flash that you don't see Grant Gustin do, which frees it up a little bit more, and is just there to be fun all the way through, which is what I want from a character like the Flash. Superman and Lois Lane are better here than in the other DC films, which is amazing. The villain is poor, the special effects aren't quite always up to snuff, the Amazonian armour is really poor, but there are things that for a DC fan like me, I can really relish in this. Brigsby Bear, I did not know what to expect from this. It's a little bit like The Room, but the story I got in the end was even different than anything I could have expected. It could have gone very dark and very difficult, but actually it ends up a bit more light, certainly more inspirational than you might expect. There is some really good off-kilter performances in this, some slightly strange stuff, but I'm really glad I watched this. This is one of the few that's come on Sky as a sort of unknown film from recent years that has ended up being really, really good. And finally, Sicario is just me continuing to work through Denis Villeneuve's back catalogue. The film was a lot darker and harder than I expected it to be. I can see what story they were telling, and I think the way it sort of drip feeds you information as you go through is probably the right way to go and keeps it interesting. But I think I would have enjoyed this story more from the point of view of Josh Brolin or Del Toro's characters, following Emily Blunt and Daniel... I can't remember his last name, Canaro, maybe? Sorry. Following those characters, I don't know, it just robs it a bit because they're not... I find it hard to be sympathetic to them at times because they're not the most interesting thing on screen. The recommendations this week, it's really hard to choose between The Killing and The Player. They are both classic films. They both have endings that help make the film even better on top of everything that was great before in the film. In The Character, I loved the various characters who were all interesting characters, but they were pretty despicable in their own way. And the heist itself was exciting as a heist should be in a heist movie. The Player, the way it showed the day-to-day of the Hollywood machine was great because it wasn't dull. That would be a very easy tale to tell in a really boring manner. And there were cameos galore, which was really interesting. It made the film, the moments of the cameos were done in a way to make them feel mundane, whereas in another film it would be, oh, that's the cameo from Burt Reynolds. Oh, isn't that exciting? Oh, it's Jeff Goldblum. Oh, no, this is just these people out to lunch or in a bar and yeah, really nicely scattered throughout the film. And the relationships between the characters, every scene had sparks as all the different people came and went in the story. So, yep, I'm going to have to recommend both of them. They were excellent. So over the next week, still hoping to get to the cinema because there's so much stuff out. And I found there's a Studio Ghibli season on, so I think over the next few weeks we may well see a few more of those films dripping in. So there'll be some interesting stuff. I will speak to everyone on week 32.